Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid. Redress the past, or reach out to the gettable white voter who says, you know what, I'd like a shot at getting in the pot business. But to do that, our entire audience.
Have you ever noticed how Democrats seem to invent new ways to undermine themselves? It's almost like a competitive sport at this point. Every election cycle, they find some shiny cultural issue that manages to push away their own supporters. Even Bill Maher, who's no conservative cheerleader, called them out on this during his show. And this time, the spotlight is on the infamous Latinx debate. A few years back, progressive activists rolled out the term Latinx, expecting it to replace words like Latino and Latina in campaigns, schools, and official speeches. They assumed the community would embrace it. Instead, Latino voters collectively shrugged, or worse, rolled their eyes. Survey after survey showed they disliked the term, didn't use it, and didn't want it. The backlash even came from some of the nation's oldest and most respected Latino civil rights groups, who outright said, "This isn't for us." But instead of recognizing the rejection, leaders like AOC dug in deeper. Their defense was that gender is fluid, language is fluid. Fine, but here's the catch. Voters are fluid too. And Latino voters, like anyone else, will shift if they feel ignored. Maher pointed to one striking case. A heavily Latino congressional district on the Mexican border, historically deep blue, suddenly flipped Republican. Why? Because Democrats stopped showing up as advocates for the community and started acting like spokespersons for causes and hashtags that had nothing to do with everyday life on the ground.
This week, an 85% Latino congressional district on the border with Mexico, which had always voted heavily Democratic, flipped to the red team. And the campaign manager for the losing Democrat said, "We gave up a reliably Democratic congressional seat for no reason at all. We deserve to know why." Well, aside from your terrible attitude, I'm going to tell you why. Because these voters stopped seeing your candidate as their lawyer.
That's exactly where Maher's argument hit home. Voters expect their representatives to be like attorneys, fighting for their interests day in and day out. Instead, too many Democrats seem more interested in chasing social media trends than solving problems. People don't want to hear their elected leaders obsessing over hashtags or correcting grammar in everyday speech. They want them fixing schools, lowering costs, and keeping streets safe. The Latinx push is the perfect symbol of this disconnect. Think of it like insisting that pizza be rebranded as circular gluten discs, and then doubling down when everyone boos. And when people push back, Democrats don't course correct. They claim it's about inclusion and fluid language. But voters aren't buying it. They know the difference between genuine inclusivity and political arrogance dressed up as progress. And every time Democrats dig in on a losing fight like this, they risk alienating the very communities they claim to champion.
Your message to you was, I'm an American now. I'm here. Be my lawyer, not the lawyer for the migrants showing up in my backyard. Every month I see a new poll reporting how much Latinos despise the woke term Latinx. It's about as popular with them as a reboot of Speedy Gonzales.
This misstep is one reason Donald Trump, yes, the same Trump Democrats swore could never appeal to minority voters, ended up making unexpected gains among Latino communities. It wasn't because Trump suddenly turned into their defender. It was because Democrats abandoned the role. When a party stops advocating for you, voters will naturally seek someone else who will. Politics really is that straightforward. If you want people to trust you, you have to fight for their priorities, not impose your own. The moment voters feel you're working for someone else's agenda, they'll fire you at the ballot box and hand the job to the opposition. Democrats are learning that lesson the hard way.
Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid.
But this trend goes beyond Latino voters. Asian American families are also peeling away from Democrats, and education policy is at the heart of it. In several deep blue cities, officials argued that the way to achieve equity in schools was to cut back or outright eliminate advanced academic programs, the very ones where Asian students excelled. On paper, the policy was sold as leveling the playing field. In practice, it punished the hardest working kids. Instead of raising struggling students up, schools dragged everyone down to the lowest bar. Parents who watched their children devote long nights to studying math or science saw opportunities vanish overnight. For them, that isn't fairness. It's sabotage disguised as reform. Imagine being told your child's excellence is a problem that needs to be corrected. Naturally, parents started asking, "Who is standing up for my kid?" And increasingly, they didn't see Democrats in that role. They looked elsewhere for advocates, which explains why shifts in voting patterns are showing up across communities once considered firmly in the Democratic column.
And more of them now than ever are identifying as Republican. So are Asian Americans, whose support for Democrats is down 16 points since the last election. A lot of that is because, in the name of achieving equity in schools, Democrats in deep blue cities have made it a mission to eliminate the advanced programs at which Asian kids excel. Asian parents said, "Okay, I wish all kids well, not a racist, but I need someone who acts like my lawyer."
The fallout from these education policies affects every student, not just Asian kids. High achievers set the standard that inspires their peers. Remove that, and the motivation for others to push harder disappears. If excellence is erased in the name of equity, the system turns into a race to the bottom. Students lose the drive to go further, knowing the reward has been flattened out. And then the pandemic magnified the frustration. Across the country, parents pleaded for classrooms to reopen, but Democratic leaders often sided with teachers' unions over families. The result? Students fell behind academically and socially, while parents felt their voices were ignored. So when election season came around, many parents, Democrats included, switched sides. And who can blame them? If your child comes home struggling more than before, are you really going to keep supporting the same leaders who stood in the way of solutions?
A parent and wanted schools to reopen a lot sooner than they did after COVID shutdowns, or think maybe your kid is getting a bad education partly because it's nearly impossible to fire a lousy teacher? Yeah, you're going to say, "Congratulations, teachers, you got yourself a good lawyer. The Democratic Party's always got your back, 100%. But I've noticed my kid is kind of an idiot. So I may be looking for new representation."
Another flashpoint is student loan forgiveness. On the surface, canceling debt sounds generous. Wipe the slate clean, give young adults breathing room, and let them chase new opportunities. But zoom out, and it looks like a slap in the face to millions of working-class Americans who never went to college in the first place. Think about the mechanic who skipped school to avoid debt, the waitress who's been working doubles, or the delivery driver who's managed life without a degree. Now, they're being told their tax dollars are covering someone else's six-figure loan for a degree in a field that might not even pay back. That feels less like compassion and more like favoritism. Worse, many of those benefiting from forgiveness could eventually earn more than the blue-collar workers footing the bill. The message comes across as, "We'll bail out the privileged while ignoring everyone else." And voters are noticing. What was meant to look like justice increasingly feels like a transaction, buying loyalty from one group while alienating another.
President Biden wants to cancel hundreds of billions of dollars in student debt. Okay, but the poorer 2/3 of American kids who don't get a college degree are going to say, "Why should the people who didn't go to college and make less money subsidize the people who did go and make more? You want me to chip in so some liberal arts college can build a bigger rock wall? You're not my lawyer."
The same pattern shows up in universal basic income experiments. Some cities have piloted programs that hand out guaranteed cash, sometimes restricting eligibility to specific identity groups. While helping people in need is a worthy goal, Targeting benefits to one group while excluding others breeds resentment. Families who are equally struggling but don't qualify end up feeling invisible. And invisible voters don't stick around. They look for leaders who see them. This overfocus on identity politics has made Democrats appear one-dimensional. Take West Hollywood, where a program offering $1,000 a month for 18 months was launched but limited partly to LGBTQ+ residents. Critics quickly challenged it, and courts struck it down as unconstitutional. The message voters took away was clear. Some lives matter more than others in the eyes of Democratic policymakers. Meanwhile, Republicans are seizing ground on issues Democrats should have owned. Marijuana legalization is a prime example. Bill Maher himself admitted that Trump could be the one to push it through nationally, even though Democrats had promised it for years. Imagine the irony. The party often mocked as uptight delivers the reform progressives only talked about. And that's the crux of it. Democrats excel at slogans, hashtags, and grandstanding, but stumble when it's time to deliver results. Voters don't want buzzwords about pronouns or endless lectures about equity. They want safer neighborhoods, stronger schools, and policies that respect their hard work. Right now, Republicans are positioning themselves as the party willing to play that role. Unless Democrats shift course, they risk losing Latino voters, Asian American families, and working-class communities across the board. When Election Day comes, style won't save them. Results will. Bill Maher might not be a conservative icon, but even he sees what's happening. Democrats are digging their own grave with policies that look more like pandering than progress. The only question is whether they'll wake up before it's too late.